Welcome to the second week of this module. So the first thing is I need to kind of inform you that the last week I said I can start the other two, like the remaining ruminant and non-ruminant. But the thing is, when I talked to my coordinator, the course coordinator, she told me that there are two separate modules for those sections. Initially, I thought this is kind of a 2 weeks, I need to complete all the ruminant, non-ruminant, and all the other things. So she told me that no, this is just to cover up all the poultry and those related aspects. So anyway, I fortunately or unfortunately, I covered most of the part last week, kind of thinking that I need to finish non-ruminant management and the ruminant management this week. But considering the given instruction by the course coordinator, I will further kind of discuss about the housing and diseases of poultry today. So today, I think you will not have kind of a long kind of a lecture. Maybe I can finish a little bit earlier today, as I am kind of already completed most of the required sections last week. So the other thing is I am not staying at home at university premises today. So I am staying at my home. So you might hear some sounds. My son is playing around, and I apologize for that. පොඩ්ඩක් ඒකත් එක්ක මාත් එක්ක බෙයා කරන්න මොකද මම ඉන්නේ ගෙදරද පොඩ්ඩක් සද්දපද්ද එහෙම හිතන්නේ ඒක ගැන එච්චර හිතන්න එපා මේ අතරින් පතර පොඩි පොඩි ඉන්ටරප්ෂන්ස් වුණොත් එන්නේ මම ගිය සතියේ මම කිව්වනේ මේ රුමිනන්ට් එකයි ඒ ටික කරගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා නමුත් දැන් බැලුවාම ඒක මට දීලා තියෙන කෝස් මොඩියුල් එකත් එක්ක බැලුවාම මේ ඔක්කොම එකට දාලා තිබ්බේ නමුත් දැන් පස්සේ මම කෝස් කෝඩිනේටර් එක වෙනම කතා කරා ගියේ ඔයගොල්ලන්ට කතා කරාට පස්සේ ඒතර මට කිව්ව විදිහට ඒක ඔයාලට වෙනම මොඩියුල්ස් තියෙනවා ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මේ රුමිනන්ට් වලට වෙනම වීක්ස් දෙකක් තියෙනවා non ruminant වෙනම වීක්ස් දෙකක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට ඇත්තටම මම ගොඩාක් sections මම ගිය සතියේ cover කරලා තිබ්බා. නමුත් අර මම එච්චර deeply touch කරපු නැති areas තමයි එක diseases side එක. අනික මේ housing ඒ කොහොමද ඒ පැත්ත කතා කරන්න කියලා. ඒක නිසා මම අද ඒ areas ටික cover කරන්න. නමුත් අර ගිය සතියේ වගේ පැය 6ක් විතර 5ක් 6ක් විතර ලොකුවට ඇදෙන එකක් නෑ. මොකද මේ ගොඩාක් දේවල් මම ගිය සතියේ කතා කරලා තියෙන නිසා. But before starting this lecture, if you have any concerns about last week, any kind of unclear areas, you can ask me now. So then we can discuss that now. මොනවා හරි ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා නම් ඊ සතියේ වැයන් අරවා මෙයා පොඩ්ඩක් කියන්න. එතකොට මට ඒව ගැන කතා කරලා ඒක මේක පටන් ගන්න පුළුවන්. මොනවා හරි ගැටලු තියෙනවද ඒ වැය? නැත්නම් තව further explain කරන්න ඕන මොනවා හරි තියෙනවා නම් කියන්න. මොකද එතන ගොඩාක් කව වෙලා තියෙනවා ඇත්තටම එකයි ඊට පස්සේ පෝල්ට්‍රි ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එකයි ඒ සම්බන්ධ දේවල් ටික ඊට පස්සේ මොනවා නමුත් ඩීප්ලි කතා කරේ නැහැ ඇත්තටම අපි මේ housing structures මොනවද what are the diseases of poultry so those are the main two sections available for today so I will be discuss those two sections it may be kind of boring because lots of theories and lot of theories we do need to kind of remember most of the things. So, but anyway, for the lectures, I already uploaded last week's lectures I think to the LMS. I think you might have accessed that one. So I kind of shortened the form, like whatever the most important things you need to know for the examination. So you can just go through that. But if you have any questions regarding those things, or if you still want me to kind of upload the full lecture series, so I can do that as well. But for the examination, just study whatever the things I have already uploaded.
Excuse me, sir. I kindly request you upload the full lecture series better.
Okay. Okay. So I can do that as well. So I will do that.
Thank you.
But don't worry about those kind of additional information given in those the long series. You may not need that for the examination. But for the general knowledge and whatever the things, if you want to follow these courses for your degree level or maybe postgraduate level, those things may be important. But for the examination and under your kind of level, those whatever the given in the lectures or already uploaded in the LMS would be sufficient for you guys. I already have the recordings for the last week, but the thing is, I think the capacity is too high. I am not sure whether I can upload this to this LMS. I will check with the administrator, and then if it allows, I will upload that one as well. Even I am recording this lecture too. But the thing is, the capacity, whatever the megabytes is too high. I don't know why. Maybe the quality is too high for the Zoom because it's 5 hours, so maybe 5.5 hours long lecture. So that's the case. But I will try. I will ask the administrator and then ask him to upload that.
Excuse me, sir, if it is possible, you can divide it to number of recordings and send it to. I don't know whether it is possible.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not kind of well about the Zoom using, because initially I was using other software like a Microsoft Teams, and we have WebEx when I was doing my PhD. So I am not kind of very familiar with Zoom and Zoom meeting. So that's why I have some issues. But I will talk to administrator, and then whoever I think Damit is kind of controlling these the Zoom meetings and the LMS ICT center. So I will ask him to kind of upload whether it is possible in one document or maybe separately to several series and then just upload it. I will ask him.
If we have the recording, it is very good, sir, because you are telling additional things, no, in addition to the
that's the thing I don't like for these kind of online kind of lecture series, because we don't see you and you don't see me, and then I am just talking. Maybe you guys are just listening sometimes, or maybe because in the classroom we can just talk and we can just interact and just kind of write down whatever the important things. Let's see how it goes. So this is the course kind of the schedules and how they have arranged this diploma level. And even it is easy for you guys because you can just stay at home, and otherwise you have to spend lots of money to come to the university and then find a place to stay, and it's kind of traveling and everything. So this is kind of convenient for you guys, but in terms of learning objectives and all the other kind of stuff, yeah, it's kind of strange, but still we have to kind of follow the things given by the course coordinator and the course management. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I hope you can see the screen now. I shared it. So last time we were talking about all the whatever the management aspects the poultry or the animals, the layers and the broilers are need, and whatever the nutritional requirement, how we are going to kind of help them improve their quality of life. So one of the aspects that we can kind of generally use to improve their quality or the quality of their products and whatever the end products, we can improve their environment. Environment improve. So we can do several things. First is nutritional, otherwise genetic, or the environment means whatever the housing systems. So in terms of housing, so you know the poultry physiology, if you want to kind of remind, so we have kind of different breeds, they have different comfort zones. They are very high yielding. They produce more compared to the whoever we had like that jungle type. So what happens is if we have this kind of tropical environment, like in Sri Lanka, maybe India, or maybe Pakistan, or maybe South Asian regions, or the African regions, or maybe Southern American region, what happens is the environmental factors will adversely affect those animals, their production, because our temperature or the climate kind of zone is outside their comfort zone. That's the case. So again, then in a poultry beast like Godak on the high producing country, for example, high producing layers or maybe the broilers, their comfort zone, they are again Hondama Egolange Jivat and Pulang Hondama zone, a highly productive efficient zone, Godak Kelata, pay temperature. That the RH combination eකට වඩා එළියෙන් තියෙනවා. So therefore we have to manage that environmental conditions if we want to kind of improve or just to maintain their quality of life, right? So that's why the housing systems are really important. So what we kind of usually do, why we are kind of giving them a very good housing system is basically for the comfort as well as for the protection. ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා අපි සාමාන්‍ය housing එකක් දෙන්නේ එකක් අපි උනත් ගයක් හදාගන්න අපිට comfort zone එකේ ඕන ඉන්න අපිට ඒ වගේම ආරක්ෂාවක් ඕන නිසා, right? So we can, the other thing is we can control everything scientifically. So we can manage whatever the environmental conditions they need. We can feed them the way we want. We can provide some water the way we want, and we can provide the medicine the way we want. So we can control everything. The other one is very easy, or it is very convenient for the management. And even the economic operations, we can manage everything very conveniently without any hassle. Hassle කියලා කියන්නේ කාර්යයක් නැතුව අපිට හැමදේම නැත්නම් අපි දන්න සත්තු ටික බෑක්යාඩ් එකේ දාලා තිබ්බොත් ඔක්කොම එකපාර අපිට එක හොයාගෙන විතර එකතු කරන්න හැමදේම කිසිම කියන්නේ අනවශ්‍ය විදිහට අපිට ටයිම් එක වේස්ට් කරන්න වෙනවා, right? The next one is we can reduce the total cost of production. So we can manage, we can kind of bring them to one place and we can provide all the things. So we need less labor, we need a less space. So we can reduce the total COP values for those products, right? So we can increase their performances. Yeah, whatever the intention is to produce eggs, so we can increase the egg production, or we want to increase the broiler or the meat production, okay, we can enhance that productions as well. In addition, if you provide a very good housing, a very good environment for those animals, we can ensure better health and welfare of those animals. Because they have the protection, they have the comfort, they have the better temperature, they have the better RH, and they have the better health conditions, they have the better feeds, and they are not kind of get mixed with water or any other things which will enhance the overall health and the welfare of those animals. In addition, the environmental conditions surrounding the birds, because even the macro, and I will be talking about later, the macro environment, it means the outside environment we cannot control because it depends on the overall weather conditions, but we can control the microclimatic condition which is surrounding the birds or which is surrounding the house. So we can provide the ventilation better, we can provide the light, we can provide the RH, we can control the temperature. So we can maintain a better or proper microclimatic conditions for those animals. So in addition, so if we have a sufficient space, the house, we can increase the stocking density, we can provide the optimum area or kind of per bird space without any issues. We can, for an example, if we are going to build a house that the capacity is 1,000 birds. So we know the number of birds that we can store, we know the amount of space they need, so we can control everything, right? The next thing is we can kind of assure the optimum and uniform growth of those animals, right? ඔයගොල්ලන්ට පේනවා නේද? Somebody messaged me saying that she cannot see anything. Can you see my?
No, sir. It is clear.
Okay. Maybe
a signal problem.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe some issue with I think her number is DAPM03077. Maybe something wrong with your signal or the internet connection. Please check that one because I cannot control that one, right? So yeah, so finally what we want is to optimize and enhance and uniformly obtaining a very good growth or the performances of those animals, right? So please remember these kind of things because I know you have MCQ type examination, but I can ask any question regarding kind of changing the answers of these things. So just try to kind of memorize why we are kind of giving a better environment or housing condition for those animals. Okay, so if you can remember, last time I was talking about there are different kind of housing system or the management system for these animals, right? Maybe free range, or we call them backyard or the extensive system, or the semi-intensive system. This is kind of management system in between free range or the backyard or the extensive to intensive system. Okay, so the other thing is the last one is the intensive system. So if you can remember, there were different cage system, there were different things that I was talking last time. So you have three basic system: the extensive, semi-intensive system, right? So I will be talking about three systems separately, so you can understand what are the main differences and what are the basic advantages as well as disadvantages in terms of these housing or management systems. Okay. So when it's come to the backyard or the free range or the extensive system, this is one of the oldest system that we adopted when we had a lots of space or the land available. But still there are some countries, still they have, specifically European countries, because they are better concerned about the animal health and the welfare. So they are having these kind of systems in their backyard or maybe even in large farms. සාමාන්‍ය ලංකාව වගේ රටවලට වඩා යුරෝපියන් එහෙම නැත්නම් අර animal welfare කියන ඒවට concern, highly concerned රටවල් තියෙනවා, specifically Europeans. So they have these kind of systems in their backyard. You can house වල backyard system එක. එහෙම නැත්නම් even they have large farms with this kind of free range system. So this is the oldest or the one of the oldest system that they have adopted. So what happens is all the birds have kind of given an opportunity for the foraging purpose. So they can just wandering around, they can just walk around and they can find whatever they want and they can just eat. But the thing is, in kind of providing some additional support, they have given some shade or the shelters for those animals and some feed, waters in some kind of a corner of those land. But overall, they are free to walk around. They have better kind of freedom compared to the other two systems. So when you consider about the density or the stocking density, even it is lesser birds per kind of hectare base or maybe per acre. So it's kind of a better system for in terms of animals, not like the kind of economical way. සාමාන්‍ය අපි ලංකාව වගේ රටවල් නම් කොහොමද ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරනවා අඩුයි. නමුත් යුරෝපියන්ස් ලා උනත් ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරනවා. මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝ දැන් ගොඩාක් කන්සර්න් කරන්නේ animal health and welfare. Even though we kind of finally eat their meat or whatever the eggs they produce. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි කොච්චර අපි කිව්වත් මේගොල්ලෝ ultimately අපි සතු slaughter කරනවා කනවා ඒක වෙනම කතාවක්. නමුත් එතකන් ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඕන කරන නිදහස හැමදේම දෙනවා කියන method එකේ ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නවා. But in other countries, maybe in USA or maybe in other countries, they don't kind of consider a better animal welfare. They usually target in the production or maybe eventually the economic gain of animal production. So then they have very minimum animal welfare systems, but still there are some concerns about the people and they are willing to pay higher price for these kind of products. Again, the free range system, එහෙම නැත්නම් extensive system. ඒගොල්ලෝ උදාහරණයක් විදිහට එකම සුපර් මාකට් එකකට ගියාම ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ තියෙන products ඔයගොල්ලෝ සමහර රට ගිය අය දන්නේ නැති ඕන තරම් ගිය අයත් ඇති. ඒගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා වෙන වෙනම products තියෙනවා. මේ සත්තුන්ගේ මේ meat එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ eggs ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන free range එහෙම නැත්නම් extensive system එකේ. එහෙම වුණාම අර සාමාන්‍ය price එකට වඩා යම් ප්‍රමාණයක් වැඩි. නමුත් there are some people, many people, they are still willing to pay higher price if they have raised those animals or if they have get those products from better welfare or maybe better health animals. Again, animal welfare concern කරලා ඒගොල්ලෝ මාකට් කරන product එක. එහෙම සත්තු මිලදී අරගෙන ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ products කන ඕන තරම් මිනිස්සු ඉන්නවා අනිත් රටවල් වල. නමුත් in terms of profitability or economic gain, most of the farmers are going for the semi-intensive or intensive systems. Okay, the next one is the kind of a semi-intensive system. So it is kind of a system in between the extensive or the intensive system, which I'll be talking a little bit later. So what happens is they have both things, which means they have the kind of freedom to just to kind of move around, and as well as they have the houses too. It's kind of a thing that basically practiced by the small scale level producers. We can see this kind of system even in Sri Lanka, but because of kind of lesser land availability as well as lesser labor, so they are basically going for the intensive management systems, and in order to get higher profit and economical gain. But still, these kind of systems are still available in Sri Lanka and even in other countries. So this is kind of an in-between system. So if you know better about the extensive system as well as intensive system, all the aspects, all the management systems are kind of in between in semi-intensive system. So you can see these kind of houses. This is not exactly what we have in our country, but the similar thing. So they have this kind of free access to the outside, they have feed, water, and they have some kind of covered area just to kind of stay at home while they are done with all the feeding and walking around. You don't need to remember all the things, just remember what are the different kind of systems and main characteristics. So I think we talked about this one last time as well. So they have different systems like litter systems. You know that the birds can be kept on the floor as well as in different cages, right? So you can see, so this is kind of a deep litter system. So if you can remember the depth, so the broilers and layers have different height of the litter system. So maybe for the broilers, maybe maximum up to 5 centimeters, but for the layers, we can go maybe 10 to 15 centimeters in height of litter system, because we are keeping these animals for longer time period, right? But as we discussed last time, so one of the main disadvantage of this kind of deep litter system is we have to maintain a well or the high quality litter system. Otherwise, there are some diseases that can be kind of spreaded through this litter, as well as maybe some ammonia gas effect for those birds, right? So when it comes to the birds, I think even in our kind of backyard or maybe semi-indoor system, so you might have seen these kind of things. So they have this kind of floor system, the slatted floor, we call them slatted, or maybe the wire or the wire floor systems. So we are raising these kind of animals in this system over this kind of deep litter system, because it will kind of facilitate easy kind of removal of feces as well as uric acid. මේකේ තිබ්බාම ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මේකේ යටින් මේ ෆ්ලෝ එක හරහා යට යන නිසා කිසිම කරදරයක් නැතුව අපිට යටින් එකතු කරගන්න පුළුවන් මේ වගේ සිස්ටම් එකක් උනත් මේ වගේ හවුස් එකක් උනත්. You see this kind of raised flow system. So what you can see is you can collect all the feces and other litter material from bottom of these houses. So there is no much contamination from their flow. So that's the basic kind of advantage of having this kind of slatted or maybe wire flow system for these birds over this kind of deep, or the what you call the deep litter systems. So there are some farms still they have both. They just, if they have the resources, if they have the spaces. So what they do is they kind of try to maintain both the system. So it's kind of depends on the requirement, whatever the resources they are available. But the thing is, it is very expensive and very complicated system, because you can see they have the litter system over here, and even they have the other cage or the slated areas over here. So they have to maintain both the kind of things in these kind of areas. So what happens is they have to kind of have additional resources as well as kind of the economic kind of expenses for this kind of management system. So it's depends on the system, but in our countries we don't see these kind of highly combined or the latest systems for these birds. So these sometimes these people have these kind of different systems, and so they try to maintain this based on the certification system. Because සමහර ඒවා තියෙනවා certification system. ඒ රටවල් වලට අදාළ වෙනම certificates තියෙනවා. සත්තුන්ගේ welfare ඒව ගැන concern කරන. ඒතකොට මේ සත්ත්ව දෙපැත්තටම බගි බේර ගන්න ඕන නම් එක එක විදියට ඒගොල්ලෝ combine කර කර හදලා බලනවා. එතකොට ඒ අදාළ තත්ත්වයන්ට අදාළව ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඒ ක්‍රමවේදයන් තියෙනවා. නමුත් ඉතින් අර ගොඩාක් eventually වෙන්නේ animal welfare එක හරි ඒව ගැන කතා කරත් කවුරුත් අන්තිමට බලන්නේ economic gain එකනේ. ඒතකොට ඉතින් ගොඩාක් වෙලාවට ඔය කොහොම සිස්ටම් එක කොහොම තිබ්බට අන්තිමට ඉතින් සත්තුන්ගෙන් වෙන ලොකු වාසියක් නැති වෙන අවස්ථාවල් තියෙනවා. So just to think about it, it happen those kind of things as well. So you can see these kind of systems as well, different kind of the places where they have birds in different flow systems, so we call them aviaries. So kind of multi-tiered, multi-story areas. Okay, you can see they have given please turn off your microphones once you are logged in. So you can see these kind of systems. So they have given different tiers up and different levels. So they can jump here and there. So they can have, they can, if they want to stay in a lower area, so they can stay over there, or maybe go to the top, or they can just walk around. So they can jump here and there. So they have given those kind of access. So this kind of different things just to know, you guys, so get an idea. So the other one is the cage system. So we have the, as we discussed last time, so they are given a kind of a wire or a netting floor in small compartments, so small cages. So we can stock them in those cages. So it's better for the kind of, if you want to stock higher number of birds with less space. Less space means we are trying to give in them minimum space. If a bird can ඕන minimum recommended space එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ space එකේ අපි maximum විදියට stock කරන්න තමයි හදන්නේ. ඒතන අපි සාමාන්‍ය දින when it comes to the free range system or maybe the semi intensive or those kind of systems, they have, even though we say okay per hectare we stock 1,000 birds, but they still have kind of a higher floor space per bird. But in these cage systems, what we do is we just stock them with their minimum requirement or the minimum or the recommended scientific spaces. So we can stock higher number of birds. So eventually what will happen is we can gain higher economic gain. Specifically what we do is this is for the layers. cages net boxes එකක් විදිහටම මේ වගේ system එකක් add කරනවා. ඒ වගේ එකදී බිත්තර උනත් automatically ඒගොල්ලන්ට collect කරගන්න පුළුවන්. So those kind of system is better for the intensive or rearing systems. With maybe the initial cost may be very high, but eventual gain is very high because of higher number of birds that we can stock, and even we can collect eggs in automated system. Automated system එකකදී අපිට automatic eggs collect කරගන්න පුළුවන් කිසිම කරදරයක් නැතුව. So that's why we are preferred, or modern poultry farming systems prefer these kind of management systems, because first they can save labors. Because if you have a deep litter system, if you can remember last time we were talking about, at least we need to rake once a day, or maybe in the mornings for the broilers, or maybe for the once in 2 days or once in 3 days for the layers, so just to kind of eliminate sawdust gases and maybe keep it dry. So we need more labors. But in these kind of cage systems, what happens is, as I mentioned a little while ago, we can kind of collect all the feces and uric acid from the bottom of those cages, maybe underneath of the cages, not inside the cage, it is underneath. So you can easily remove the gases as well as other waste material without any contamination from the birds or the eggs or the final products. So this is just to kind of give you another heads up. So they are stocked in these kind of cages. So you can see, so they have wire mesh over here. So they just stay inside these cages. So they have given the feed access and water access. And we have a separate tray because this is kind of a little slanted.
Hello, good morning. Hello.
So please, yeah, it's පොඩ්ඩක් පුළුවන් නම් ඔයගොල්ලෝ turn off කරගන්නවද mic? මොකද මම automatically turn off කරනවා, but you are given the access to kind of turn on when you need. ඔයගොල්ලෝ පුළුවන් නම් microphones පොඩ්ඩක් turn off කරගන්න once you are joined with these Zoom meetings, okay?
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Okay. So you can collect eggs from here. So eggs are not kind of contaminated with soil or the litter system over here. So that we can collect very clean eggs from here. So they have access for the feed as well as the waters over here. So with their kind of, they cannot move here and there very much. They have just a minimum or the standard space for each bird, and then they just stay over there. So with minimum kind of movements, what happens is, so they spend less energy, so they can just focus on their production. Right? So in some automated systems, you can see, so eggs are automatically collected for these belt. So they are just automatically moved towards the stocking areas. So you can see different kind of cages inside the houses. So we call them based on the number of rows. Like, so if we have different rows, I think, yeah. So based on that, so we can have different number of rows, maybe single deck, double deck, triple, four. They can stocks in here. Last time, so this depends. So you can just go through these kind of things. They are pretty kind of simple and easy to understand. I don't think I need to kind of explain everything. So we can kind of divide them based on the density, based on the number of rows, based on the arrangement of the kind of cages. Like as last time we were talking about battery cages, so the stepped cages like M type, L type. So we have different things. So based on the type of birds we rear, maybe the brooders like you are pretty small chicks. So the growers, layers, or the breeders. So we can have different types of cages dedicated for different birds based on their type or the purpose. So just kind of get an idea of those kind of different cages. So we can have these kind of individual cages. So we have colony cages. This is just to give you some images, right? So we can have, so if you have maybe different, these kind of different systems. So we have different levels, like for an example, the single deck, double deck, triple deck. So you Google, or you can just find out different pictures if you want to see all the type of cages that can be available for the intensive management system. Yeah, so this, I think you have visited, or if you are working in a layer farm. So in Sri Lankan condition, we have these kind of systems or the elevated cage houses. So you can collect all the kind of feces from underneath this floor. So it's very easy, and even it will provide a very good ventilation because they have the wire mesh over here. And over here, all the floors kind of walls are covered with this kind of wire mesh. What happens is it is kind of raised about few feet above the ground, maybe 5, 6, or maybe in some cases 7, 8 feet. It depends on the environmental conditions. So what happens is, so it's better to kind of provide these conditions in dry areas or the dry zone, maybe not Western province areas, most of the poultry or the layer farms like this. So you don't need to remember any kind of these numbers, what are the differences or the height of the pillars or anything, just to get an idea. These kind of systems are very good for the zone, and what happens is very easy to provide the ventilation, very easy to kind of remove the waste material, and birds are not contaminated with any soil or anything. The eggs are very clean. You can collect eggs very easily, and even the density is very high compared with the semi-intensive system or the free-range system, right? So you can, there are some images of those kind of systems. So it's kind of above the ground. So there are no any kind of, if there are even the flooding or anything, it will not be affected from those kind of environmental issues or any kind of things. And even it is kind of have biometer, so it will provide a better ventilation. So the only concern is birds are not allowed to move outside the environment. They are confined into an kind of defined areas, but still they get better conditions compared to the other management systems. ඔයාලා මේ numbers අරම කිසිම දෙයක් මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. ඒවා just numbers වෙන්න පුළුවන්. push එකක් වෙන්නේ. නමුත් just to find out what are the main differences and what are the main advantages and what are the main benefits that the animals as well as the producers will get by using different kind of systems. මොනවද වාසි, economically මොනවද වාසි, මොනවද අවාසි. ඒ වගේ දේවල් පොඩ්ඩක් ටිකක් මතක තියාගන්න නැතුව අර මේ දුර මෙච්චරයි අච්චර කුසයි මෙච්චර පල්ලයි ඒවා ලොකුවට වැදගත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ level එක. So as I mentioned last time, so we have to provide a better environmental in terms of temperature and RH for those buildings, right? So when we are kind of going for different modern housing systems, what we usually targeting is better feed conversion ratio, what we call is FCR, and we need to improve the overall production of those animals. We need to provide better care of health and welfare of those animals. We need to control the diseases, and what we want is ultimately obtaining better breeding or better life conditions for those animals, right? So that's why we are kind of going for better or whatever the improved housing system for these animals. මොකද අපි කොච්චර මොන දේ කරත් අපි ultimate අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන අර ඉස්සෙල්ලා කිව්වා වගේ ඒ සතුන්ගේ better FCR. FCR means feed conversion ratio, or we can say better feed conversion efficiency. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි මොකද්ද? If you provide 1 kilogram of feed, what is the gain? කොච්චර gain එකක් ඒගොල්ලන්ගෙන් එනවා. For an example, 1 kilogram එකක් කෑවොත් මොනවාරි feed එකක් ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ultimately කොච්චර බර වැඩි වෙනවද? නැත්නම් කොච්චර eggs ප්‍රමාණයක් අපිට 1 kilogram එකකින් හම්බ වෙනවද? ඒ වගේ අදහසක් තමයි better or higher feed conversion ratio or efficiency means සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කිලෝ කොච්චර ප්‍රමාණයක් ඒගොල්ලෝ production එක outside එකට දෙනවා. ඒක අඩු වෙන්න අපිට profit එක ගොඩාක් අඩු වෙනවා. So that's what we want to know. So we want to increase the FCR. We want to improve their production in terms of eggs or the meat. We need to have a better care, and we need to control all the diseases. So what happens is we have different closed housing or the building systems, but we kind of preferred to kind of based on the direction with the environmental conditions. We provide better equipments, ventilation systems, or the drinking systems. So we will be talking about this. Okay. So I think you might have seen this kind of system even in Sri Lanka. You can see this kind of cost or the modern housing system with better environmental. කවුරු හරි එක්කෙනෙක් මම හිතන්නේ කො බස් එකක යනවා නැත්නම් මොකක් හරි එකක් තියෙනවා චුට්ටක් එයා මයික් එක ඔෆ් කරන්න පුළුවන්. Okay. So I think you might have seen these kind of housing systems.
Hello.
Oh, මොකක් හරි කියන්න දෙනවද? අදන DAPM 03217 කියන කෙනා එයාගේ මයික් එක මේ ඔන් වෙලා තියෙනවා මොකක් හරි වාට කියන්න තියනවද? නමක් පේන්නේ නැහැ ඒක මම බලන්නේ. ඔය කවුද මැසේජ් එකකුත් දාලා තිබ්බා එයාට කතා කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා තියෙනවා මොකක්ද කියලා. Okay, so these are the different modern systems. So you can see they have all the walls are closed, so they have different fans installed outside that is to control the ventilation. So the birds are in different system, maybe the deep litter system or maybe the cage system or the battery system. So those are the kind of modern systems. So I think I have several kind of slides later as well. I'll be talking about how we are going to control the temperature, how we are going to control the RH and all the ventilation support for those birds in a little bit later. So I think I kind of went briefly in these kind of factors last time. So what are the basic factors that we should consider when we are kind of building or kind of constructing a house? So we are call them principles of housing. Briefly kata kara. So the first one is we need to select a site, a better site, and we have a better housing design, kind of supporting the environment or the animal health and welfare, because we cannot build a house, very closed housing system in dry zone. We can build, but the thing is we need to provide a better internal or the micro environmental control in order to provide the better conditions for those birds. So the housing environment, housing equipments, the space that we should give for each animal, the light management. I think you can remember we say for the broilers, first week we have to provide at least 16 hours of light per day, and for the layers at least up to 17 hours per day. We need to maintain or manage the light in order to enhance the feed intake and ultimately the gain and egg or the meat production. And we have to maintain very good hygiene and sanitary conditions inside the house. And even specifically for these birds, we need to maintain a better biosecurity comparatively to swine and ruminant management. ඔයගොල්ලෝ දැකලා ඇති ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපිට මේ වගේ farms වලට easy access දෙන්නේ නැහැ. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට දෙන්නේ a very controlled access specifically for the young birds or the poultry birds, as well as even in swine farm compared to the ruminant animals or the dairy cattle. Highly susceptible to diseases. So if one bird get any disease, so we will be talking about those diseases in the next lecture. So it's really difficult to control the spreading of disease among these birds, right? So please kind of remember about what are the basic principles of housing, or what are the basic factors we should consider when we are going to develop or construct and animal housing for poultry or the broilers or the layers. This is for both the birds, but there will be some minor differences between those two, broilers and layers, but still the main principles behind house development is very good selection of a site, housing design, the housing environment, the equipment, space, light, hygiene, sanitary, and biosecurity control of those birds. So the selection of site, so basically I kind of discussed that last time as well. So it should be located away from residential or industrial area. Again, අපි කියන්නේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අර ජනගහනය අධික තැනකට මේ අපි සාමාන්‍ය මේ වගේ house එකක් construct කරන්නේ ටිකක් ඈත. නිකන් rural කියන එක නෙමෙයි මෙතන අදහස. මේ මිනිස් ජනාවාස වලින් ඈත කියන, right? So it should have a very good soil and drainage because we are talking about kind of animal management system. We need to have a very good soil and drainage system. because වතුර stack වෙලා තියෙන තැනක් නම් ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් එහාට එකක් spread වෙන පුළුවන් diseases. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ සත්තුම වතුර නිසා යට වෙලා හරි මොන හරි එහෙම flooding වෙන system එකක් තියෙන area එකක් නම් ඒ සත්තුව ඒ හරිය හදන්න හොඳ area එකක් නෙවෙයි. මොකද it will create a very bad condition or the environmental conditions for those birds in terms of spreading some diseases, right? So it should have very easy access to water because we were talking about they need water access all day or throughout their life without any restriction. And we need electricity. That's for basically to provide heat, and we have to control all the other automated system if we are kind of following a modern housing system. The ventilation, RH control, temperature control. In order to control those kind of things, we need electricity, even for selection of bed, packaging of insects, or even we have a broiler farm. What we have to do is we have to have different equipments operated by electricity. So therefore, we need to have a better or kind of uninterrupted water and electric supply in order to maintain a very good poultry production system, right? So we need to provide a better shade, better protection, and we need to kind of provide proper ventilation. Okay? So we have to have a better market, and also we should have a better road facilities or proper facilities for the accesses, right? So please remember these kind of factors that you are kind of planning to kind of start poultry farm or a broiler farm. So when you are going to select a site, you need to have these factors. හොඳක් වෙලාවට මේවා ගැන හුඟක් හොඳින් හිතලා බලන්න ඕනේ. අපි මේ වගේ poultry farm එකක් එහෙම නැත්නම් broiler farm එකක් පටන් ගන්න යනවා නම් මේ factors ටික හරියම වැදගත් වෙනවා. මොකද අපි හිතන්න වතුර එකතු වෙන තැනක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, ඒගොල්ලන්ට බොණ්ඩ වතුර හොයාගන්න නැති තැනක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Electricity now we can go for a solar energy now since we have that technology, but still you should have to have better water supply, better soil and drainage system, and even better ventilation system. හිතන්න දැන් කැලයක් මැද වගේ farm එකක් දානවා නම් ඒක කරන්න බෑ. මොකද අපිට wind breaks වෙනවා. දැන් අපි plants ගොඩාක් තියෙනවා නම් wind එක break වෙනවා. එතනින් එහාට wind flow එකක් එහෙම නැත්නම් ventilation එක හරියට දී ගන්න බැරි වෙනවා. Ultimately the market. So that's also very important. You should have a better market if you are going to start a broiler farm. හිතන්න කොහේ හරි area එකක් උකුල select කරගන්නවා. ඒ පැත්තේ ඉන්න මිනිස්සු බිත්තර කන්නේත් නැත්නම් මම කියන්නේ hypothetically බිත්තර කන්නේ නැත්නම් මේ chicken meat කන්නේ නැත්නම් එතන ඒ වගේ තැනක farm එකක් දාලා කිසිම තේරුමක් නැහැ. මොකද ඒ product එක ඒගොල්ලන්ට sale කරගන්න බෑ. In addition, they should have a better transport facilities, basically the road conditions and the other infrastructure, right? So the housing design, the other thing is the directions, and there should be kind of minimum distance between two houses. For an example, if you are going to construct like several buildings inside that farm, you should have kind of a minimum space in order to maintain better protection for birds inside those or each pen. You can have each pen again, each cage, local buildings got the buildings අතරත් යම්කිසි proper space එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ මොකොත් නෙමෙයි මිතන්න එක පෙන් එක නැත්තම් බිල්ඩින් එක මොකක් හරි disease එකක් spread වුණොත් එහෙම ඒකෙන් අනිත් එකට ඒක spread වෙන්න තියෙන සම්භාවිතාව වැඩි නිසා. Therefore you should have to have minimum distance, right? So you have to remember that one. In addition, the house orientation. So you have to have a better housing orientation based on the climatic conditions in the area. Hot and cold both තියෙනවා නම් කොහොමද අපි direction එක ගැන හිතන්නේ? එහෙම නැත්නම් cold climate, very cold climate condition එකක්ද? එහෙම නැත්නම් very hot climate conditions එකක්ද? මේ හැමදේම ගැන අපිට හිතන්න වෙනවා අපි direction එක select කරගන්න මේ house එක, right? So you have to think, but there are some kind of barriers we cannot adhere to these kind of standards. For an example, අපි හිතන්න මොකක් හරි example එකක් විදියට මොකක් හරි housing එකක් හදන්න යනකොට හරියට මේකට follow කරන්න බැරි වෙන්න පුළුවන්, but we have to select the best option based on the availability of the resources, right? But whatever the ultimate design, the kind of planning is to provide better conditions for the birds, right? So when it comes to the kind of constructions of those kind of how you have to have a better foundation for those buildings. I think these are pretty simple to understand for you guys, and kind of the length is fine. So for an example, අපි house එකක් හදනකොට අපි length එක ගොඩාක් වෙලාවට restrict කරන්නේ නැහැ. කියන්නේ housing එකක length එක අපි දිග කියන එක. But for the width, we usually have some control. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි ගොඩාක් වෙලාවට මේ ගොඩාක් ලොකු width එකක් ගත්තොත් එහෙම අපිට ventilation control කරන්න එහෙම පොඩි ප්‍රශ්නයක් එන නිසා අපිට ඒක නිසා මේ housing design එක චුට්ටක් sophisticated විදිහට යන්න වෙනවා. නමුත් ගොඩාක් වෙලාවට අපි length එක ගැන හිතන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක නිසා මොකද length එකකින් අපි ලොකු issue එකක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. නමුත් width එක ගොඩාක් වැඩි වෙන්න අපිට ventilation කරගන්න පොඩි ප්‍රශ්න ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. So based on that we have to adjust the different housing systems or the roofing systems. So please consider those kind of factors when you are going to construct or build a house for birds. So then the height. So height is basically depends on the type of kind of birds arrangement inside the house. So we were talking about different cage, battery system, or deep litter system, or whatever the kind of system that you are going to practice. Based on that, you can select the housing or the height of the house that you are going to construct. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් අපි height එක අපි තීරණය කරන්නේ කොහොමද සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඇතුලේ මේ සත්තු ඇති කරන්න යන්නේ කියලා. ඒ කියන්නේ මොන level එකකට හිතන්න කටියේ එකකට යනවා. නැත්නම් ඒක අර අපි කිව්ව ඉස්සෙල්ලා පෙන්නන වගේ තනි කරම මේ battery cages විදියට යනවාද? මේ battery cages වල කිසිම different levels නැද්ද? levels වැඩිපුර තියෙනවනේ ඔයගොල්ලන් height එක වැඩි කරන්න වෙනවා. අන්න ඒ වගේ. ඒව නැත්නම් deep litter system එකක්. If it is a deep litter system, you don't need to have a very kind of higher නැත්නම් කියන්නේ මේ walls එක ගොඩාක් උසට හදන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. මොකද ඒකෝ සානිකර they are basically reared on the floor. So then you don't need very high walls for those buildings, right? So it depends on your kind of rearing system, you can adjust the height of those buildings, right? So the next one is the side walls. Side walls ගැන කතා කරනකොට, so they are very important. The first one is kind of we need to protect the animals from the adverse environment as well as the predators in the pulva. Therefore, we have to kind of have a very closed walls. Closed කියලා කියන්නේ මම කියන්නේ බිත්ති බඳිනවා කියන එක නෙමෙයි. But still we have to cover those walls with some materials in order to avoid any entering of predators. That is one of the requirements. In addition, in order to provide a better ventilation as well as better micro or the environmental conditions inside the houses. House වල මේ side walls එහෙම හදනකොට හරියට පරිස්සමෙන් හදන්න වෙනවා. එකක් වෙනවා closed අර මම කිව්වා වගේ මෙන්න මේ වගේ සම්පූර්ණ closed කරපු walls වලින් හදන්න බෑ. සමහර side walls ඒ environment එකේ condition එක ගන්න. හිතන්න very dry zone එකක් න අපි මේ වගේ sealed අර ඉස්සෙල්ලා පෙන්නන වගේ මේවත් ඒ වගේ seal level එකකට ගියොත් එහෙම මේ birds ලට ජීවත් වෙන්න ගොඩාක් අමාරු වෙනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපිට යන option එක තමයි තුල ගොඩාක් sophisticated instruments හයි කරන්න වෙනවා. ඒක ventilation එක වැඩි කරන්න, RH එක control කරගන්න, cooling system එක අපි අනවශ්‍ය විදියට spend කරන්න වෙනවා money කිසිම තේරුමක් නැතුව. right? So ඒවා ගැන චුට්ටක් හිතන්න වෙනවා. ඒ වගේව plan කරන්න. So the next one is the type of roofs. So it also depends on the condition or the environmental condition, which means the outside environmental conditions that we are going to build that house, right? And අපි house එකේ මේ roofing system එකත් අපි ගොඩාක් වෙලාවට දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ දැකලා සමහර ඒවා එක වර්ග තියෙනවා. සමහර අය තමයි හිතන්නේ materials ගැන කතා කරනවා ඉස්සරහට. So however, you have to select based on the conditions that you are going to rear those animals, right? So you can use different paints just to reflect. You are going to use metal sheets, so you can kind of apply some paints just to reflect whatever the sunlight that is kind of directly coming to the walls. Okay, so I showed you different types of houses last time, the roofing type. So these are the same kind of similar type of images or the cartoons of those houses. So you can see you can have different shape types, or maybe you can have different shapes. That's all depends on the requirement as well as the environmental conditions that you are going to build that house. ගොඩාක් හිතන්න මේ මෙන්න මේ closed housing system එකදී if you are going to build a house for poultry, maybe in up country or maybe hill country areas, because they are the environmentally is pretty cooler compared to the dry zone of Sri Lanka. So we can dry zone එක මේ වගේ එකක් ගහනවා නම් අපි ගහන්නේ නැහැ සාමාන්‍යයෙන්. කාට හරි මා අත්‍යවශ්‍යතාවයක් තියෙනවා නම් හදන්න. එහෙනම් අපි කොහොමද මේක ඇතුලේ environmental condition එක control කරන්නේ කියන අපිට ඒතොරෙන් මේ වයි ක්‍රොස් සිස්ටම් එකකට අපි dry zone එකේ ගියොත් එහෙනම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම environment temperature එක වැඩි වෙනවා. RH එකේ ප්‍රශ්නෙත් එක්ක යා circulation එක අඩු වුණාම සත්තු අනිවාර්යෙන් වැඩි වෙලා ඉඳලා මැරලා වැටෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ නිසා කොහොමද අපි ඒක control කරන්නේ? ඒක නිසා මේ වගේ house system එකකට යනකොට මේ වගේ එකට යනවාද කියලා depends කරන්නේ. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ඒ තියෙන environment condition එක සාය අවුරුද්ද පුරාම අපි බලනවා කොහොමද මේ normal temperatures RH වෙනස් වෙන්නේ. ඒ වගේම weather එක කොහොමද වෙනස් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ හැමදේම බලලා තමයි මේ වගේ system එකකට අපි යන්නේ. You might have seen these kind of structures in Sri Lanka as well. This is called monitor type of housing systems, right? Or even this kind of half monitor type. So that is basically just to kind of get the better ventilation, better environmental condition, kind of controlling inside those houses, right? So this type of houses are from like countries they can expect lots of snow or maybe different seasons. The seasonal variations in the countries වල තමයි සමහරවල් මේ සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම closed house system වලට යනවා. මොකද මේවා වගේ condition එකකින් හිම වැටලා එහෙම නැත්නම් temperature එක drop වෙනවා නම් Celsius or minus Celsius, maybe 10, 20, 15 sometimes. So you have to control all the temperature RH inside those houses. Maybe you have to have some heaters in order to heat the house throughout the winter season, so then to provide the optimum conditions for those birds, right? So before starting for the types of protein materials, maybe I will give you a 15 minutes break, and then we can start and finish this section and the remaining section under the diseases. හරිද මම එහෙම විනාඩි 6ක 15 interval එකක් දෙන්න. We can meet around 9:45 and discuss the rest of the lecture materials. මේකේ තියෙන ප්‍රමාණයයි ඊට පස්සේ අපිට ඉතුරු වෙලා තියෙන ටික අපි ළඟට කතා කරමු. Okay?